Hello? Hello, hello. Okay. Yeah, that actually was gonna be my thing. Okay. Yeah, that actually was gonna be what I was gonna call my stream today. But I decided not to. Yeah. I go. Like, I was tired as yesterday for some reason. Probably because I woke up like 10 hours ago. Man, it's fine. It's Thanksgiving tomorrow. Yay. That's gonna be fun. Yes, good job, computer. I'm live. Okay. I'm just gonna load up Minecraft, because why not? Okay, let's hop into this. We've been chilling here for 4 minutes. Time to set a record. It is freaking 3 Celsius here. For those who don't do Celsius, it is 3 Fahrenheit here. It be cold, my dudes. I literally have a blanket. Apparently, it's cold. It doesn't work well, but well. Too lazy to grab a hoodie. Headphones. Yes. We're so. it's. Gal, it's freaking autumn here. It's freaking. It's almost winter. We're gonna start getting snow soon. It's cold here. I don't know if it gets cold in Australia. Does it get cold in Australia? Okay, come on. Come on. Hey, okay. Bridge time. We alert. Oh no. We learn today. Oh yeah, it's so much fun when it snows here though. You've never. You've never seen snow before? Never mind about me coming to Australia. You're coming here, bruh. What do you mean? You've never seen snow before. I need to when it starts to snow, I need to send you videos or whatnot because we have have you never gone snowboarding then? Like sledding? That's no. Why did I call it snowboarding? Sledding. You've never gone sledding then? Bruh. Go. Go. Wow. Apparently there is one, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 6 people currently live on Duolingo. I have the most viewers. I was not expecting that today. Well, man. Okay, you need to go study. You need to learn. Have you made? Oh my gosh, you've never made a snowman before, or have gone into a snowball fight, or I grew. Okay, I grew up in an area where it snows like the week before, like not really the week before, like the few weeks before like Christmas, like during December, week or two before December, and then like sometimes it'll even snow during Halloween here, or like it'll snow like the weeks after, like a week or two like after December, like Christmas. Like we're oh my gosh. Okay. Let's see. How do you say snow in French? How do you say snow in French? Neige. Neige. Oh! We have a new follower. Hello? Hello, hello. Fully made snow paper. How do you make a snowman with paper? Okay. Hello. Ruther. I'm gonna fuck up the part of your name. Okay. Hello, Ruther. 440. Hello. Hello. Me and Gal are just chilling. Ah, we're doing Duolingo currently. I'm probably gonna switch to Minecraft later after after Gal gets back. Okay, Gal's our main modder. Hello. We're doing some French currently and talking about how Gal has never seen snow before. How do you make snow with like snowman with paper though? You. I'm gonna talk. Oh, me? I'm from the U.S. That's one. Shop. Gee. Oh, you are. Cool. Non. G. Non. Non. Je suis française. Non, je suis française. I am French. That is incorrect. I am not French. But, Il s'appelle d'où? S'appelle. Oh my gosh, I swear. Il s'appelle d'où? Il s'appelle d'où? S'appelle. What is happening in the chat? I looked away for 10 seconds. Il s'appelle Marc. Yes. Oh, that's fine. Isabelle Louis. Il est français. What is the difference? There's no difference. Anglais. Isabelle. Yeah, okay. So if you were saying I, then you would say I am French, not Jalit. Is Jalit. Jalit et France. Is. Bah. Tu s'appelles Louis et il m'appelle Louis. Je m'appelle Louis. Oh. Je suis. Okay, let go. I'm gonna finish this up. Je suis. Let me talk. Je suis Alice. Place. Okay, bye, girl. See ya. Yeah. Je suis Alice et je suis française. C'est Antoine et il est français. Uh, they're both English. He. There you go. See ya. Is English. Hey. Is Francis. Oh my gosh. Okay. Sorry, chatter. Bye, girl. See ya. Bye. Okay. Je m'appelle Louis. Il s'appelle Louis. Il m'appelle Louis. Il est Francis. Not Francis. Okay. No, we're not gonna do French or Chinese because Gal's not here and Gal really likes doing those. You chatter. You got ignored. It's fine. I don't even know who made it then. What, Freudian? Is it Freudian? I want it. Nah, I'll do it later. Okay. It kinda is. Okay. Okay. Cheddar, do you want to choose, what language we want to do? We can also add a new course if you want. I don't care. Because I would like to do more, French is fun. I just want to do a new one. We have Spanish, Japanese, Korean, German. I haven't had Hindu? What? Italian, no Chinese today. Russian, Arabic, Portuguese, Turkish. I need to add more. Greek, Polish, Swedish, Latin, Irish, and you can add more if you want. And Kiligon. I forgot what is Kiligon again? I forgot. It was from, let's see, Dutch. Dutch? Or is that German? No. German's neat. Okay. One sec. I want to start with language. Huh? Oh my gosh, it's a frick Star Trek thing. Oh, not again. I'm live. I'm getting handed a cat. Oh, Gal's still here. Give me the cat. Why are you here? Go away. Go away. People? Go away. Oh, shoo. Get. 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 Here, I'll turn it back on. Get. Okay, now leave. Go away! Go.
Who's watching?
Go! Leave! Get out! Be gone! From this get out! Oh my gosh, I swear. I will. Don't you love when your siblings just decide that they can enter the room that you're streaming in whenever they want? It's fun. Okay. I swear. Go away! Don't you love siblings so much? So much. So very much. Don't mind him, he's annoying. Okay. Which is, ich bin... that's German. Gal, wrong language. I think the reason I haven't done Ditch yet is because I know some German already, like my family's. Um, yeah, that's German. Also, Gal is not Ben with an E; it's Bin with an I. Here. To translation. Yeah. Oh no, you're right. Cause okay, now we're gonna take this. Yeah. Yeah. Cause like so I think they might have meant to say Ich bin Snus. We have a friend that's Gal knows someone that's named Snooze as like their username, so we just call him like Snooze underscore something. So we call him Snooze. Yeah. Yeah. So I think she meant to say Ich bin Snooze instead of Ich bin Snooze. Yeah. Me. That's cool. Okay. Oh gosh, it's so much like German. Oh no. Young. Shh. Shh. I didn't fail. I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't fail. Okay. No. Let me, bruh. Bruh. Wait, can I? No! Oh. I did! I tried. I tried. I tried. I tried. Go away! I swear if you played that, go! Get out of here! I'm gonna throw something at you. Get out of here! Oh my gosh. My unfortunate younger brother. My younger Jungen. Jungen? Is that how you say it? Jungen? I think. Maybe. I'm still saying that wrong. Unfortunately, I have a young brother who keeps coming in sometimes and annoys me when he knows I'm live. So, he's fun. Earlier, brought in the cat, so I was like, what are you doing here? Okay. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to do one of the same. I will. Why do you have the key? Close! Oh my gosh. Joey, seriously. Don't you love siblings? Don't you love siblings? Siblings are the best. Yeah. Okay. You're unfortunately gonna have to choose. Oh my gosh, shit. Um, a language that I already have saved because we're gonna have to refill our hearts and it won't let me do it. Okay, we got Portuguese, Italian, Spanish, German, Russian, Turkish, Swedish, Polish, Japanese, Irish. Oh, that's awful. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I unfortunately have him and one other younger sibling that doesn't annoy me as much, but still annoying. Okay. I don't know what to choose. I'm thinking Portuguese, German, or Russian. Maybe Korean? How have I ever done Korean? Nope. Oh, right this. Okay. Well, we got Portuguese. I want to let you choose, though. Because, honestly, I don't care. Okay. Let's do... Ja. Let's do freaking Portuguese. You. Chave. Chave. Casa. Casa. Cachorro. They all start with C's. Gata. She writes and reads. Am I smart? Oh, no. I'm not smart. You le... Le. You le un... Livro. Livro. Is that an R roll? Livro. They like roll their R's. I can't really roll my R's. Livro. Cheta. Eu escrevo carta. Carta. Hé? Menino. Menino. Escrevo uma carta. Ela é uma menina. Ela é uma menina. Ah. Ela tem uma casa. Ela tem. Ela tem uma casa. Ela tem. Tem. Quem? Você. Livro? Escreve. Escreve livro. Escreve. Nope. I cannot write for the life of me. I'm saying when I say I'd rather be famous instead. I get all that gets in my head. Paint the town red. Okay. Why is it whenever I go to write I've now gone into a habit of writing G, G, because that's how you see it. That's how you write I in freaking French. Okay. Uh, leo un libro. Nope. Libro. Am I smart? No, I'm not smart. I knew it. Okay, you. That took me like 10 times, like 5 tries to actually do something. No. Você lê livro. Livro. Nope. Such a C. I am never going to be able to spell that. Pronounce it as a different question. Boop. Okay. Você gato? Você tem gato? Você tem gato? Você tem gato? Você escreve uma carta? Uma carta. I keep doing like an extra A. Uma carta. Uma carta. Você escreve uma carta. Ich bin snooze. Means I'm snooze. Kelly, that I'm saying it's wrong. Yeah, it's wrong. It's wrong. Gal, it's so wrong. You're confusing. Gal, it's a mix of German and Dutch in the same sentence. Gal, you're mixing them. Nope, it's wrong. Gal, that's a mix of the two languages. Ich is German, Ben is Dutch. We've already confided into Google. It's wrong. Okay. Look. Wrong. Okay. And ready. Wait for it. It's a mix of the two. Gal, you're mixing them. I think Ruther left. Yeah, I think Ruther left. Oh, well, that's fine. Você escreve uma carta. Uma carta. Você escreve carta. Oh, I'm doing a lesson. Eu. Você come. You Escreve. Já está. Ok. Jornal. Journal. Journal. It's like a big journal. You emphasize the J. Shabby. I'm not saying that's true, I'm just saying it's something I noticed. I have a dog and a bola. Bola! Uma bola! Uma bola! I don't know why that sounds Italian to me. Eu tenho uma cow. I am a boy. Eu sou menino. Sim. What's the difference? Sim. Si. 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 Eu sou menino. Si, si. Eu sou menino. Vocas. Eu me. Eu sou menino. Ela não. Eu sou. Eu sou. Jornal e cão. Cão. Ele tem a chave. Chave. São menino. 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 O jornal. She. Ela tem. Casa. Uma casa. Oops. E ela. My brain went to German there. Oh wait. Smart. Oh. Wanted to eat too. That's smart. That's smart. Ela e homem. E eu sou menino. Ela tem uma casa. Alô? Let's see how many Portuguese. How do you say hello in Portuguese? Olá. 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 That's how you say hello. Olá. Wait a minute, son. Welcome back, girl. Also, girl. New person has I think has left. I think maybe. Might be wrong. Don't think so though. Do do. Okay. I'm gonna do another few practices and then we'll do a bit of French. Nope. Element. Nope. I believe they left a little bit ago. They haven't really been typing. Yeah. Damn it. Como pau? Eu leio jornal. Jornal. Oh, menino. Oh, menino. Oh, menino. 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 Eu sou menino. Oh, menino. Tem jornal. Jornal. Eu tenho uma casa. Tenho uma casa. I didn't even know you had classes. L. Are you getting a new prescription? I've had mine for like a while. I'm beating you by 6. Oh, I've been having them by like 6 years. Oh yeah. I don't have glasses. I don't wear them. Actually, a lot. I don't wear them a lot. I usually have contacts. I wear contacts a lot more of the time than I do glasses because glasses, it's just way like out of like the glass part, it's just a void. Just freaking like. So I don't like it. I like contacts more. Bola. Você o livro e eu eu de o jornal. Yeah. Okay. The description change. Cool. Yeah, we're context more. Uma. Ciao. E um, uma bola. Já está. E ele tem, ele vai. Ele tenho. Eu tenho uma casa. Um, eu pelo livro. Eu ligo o jornal. coio. Ele tem uma chave. Eu bebo água. Observo o cachorro. O cachorro bebe água. Ele come pau. Com pau. Eu leio jornal. Eu devo escrevo uma carta. O gato lê jornal. O gato. O. O gato. I. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can just. Here, I'll even do this. O menino lê uma carta. Escreve. O menino escreve uma carta. Ele lê. Leu um livro. Livro. Hate writing. I hate writing. You will com eu ele como pau. O menino escreve uma carta. Um livro. Livro. L-I. Skip. Boop, boop, boop. I hate writing. Okay. That's enough for later. Okay. Gal, you still here? Still alive? Okay. You want to switch to Minecraft? This is to Minecraft. I have it pulled up. Do 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 do. Come on, Bucking. Come on, work with me here. Work with me here. Mm-hmm. More explosions. I forgot we were doing this. I forgot we were doing this. Okay. Let's do a few right here. 1, 2, 3. Boop, boop. There they go. Ah, shit. Goes up to here. And there. Okay, I gotta change it. Oh, I didn't even post this. I was live on Twitter. Creative. Build. Done. Oh, yay! Congrats, go. Yeah, phone's kind of cursed. I know. Okay. Sorry, I got sucked into Twitter for a second. That was scary. By scary, I mean I was just getting freaking. Oh, it's looking at QSMP fan art. It's so cute. Good job. Okay. Anything else I can explode? Explode right here. Another. Why not? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oop. Come on, Wania. Just explode. There it is. No! Damn it. Consequences of my actions have caught up to me. La la la. E. I don't know. Such a cruel world we live in, don't we? I'll put it out as misery. You spin me right round, baby, right round, like a record, baby, right round, right round. You spin me right round, baby, right round, like a record, baby, right round, right round. You spin me right. I don't do that. I didn't do it. Not my thing. I didn't do it. Your fate has arrived. Okay. So as we were doing, Cameron, yay! Ah. No, some of the consequences of my actions. Bop, 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 bop. Oh, this is better. Work that out. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay. What am I hearing getting murdered? Hello? Oh, big boy. Why are my wings dying? What is happening? And it's right. Okay. Mm. Ah, I don't know what to talk about. Go. What do you want to talk about? You want to do lore? I'll turn on weather. Do you want to fight something? I'll turn on the freaking weather. And I don't really mean that. Okay. No. Not today. Okay. It must happen naturally. Ah. Too tired. Oh. I am the opposite, currently. I've been relaxing all day because I didn't have school. I didn't have sports today either. So yeah. I'm just chilling. I don't know why I say an S at the end. It's just sport. It sounds weird. Sport. I had a sport today. Sports. That doesn't even sound like a word anymore. Notification. Screw off. Shut. Ah. Okay. How do you like the build so far? How do you like the build so far, gal? Maybe we should make some. It took you like a few minutes of being bored, and you're like, maybe. Can you hear that? There's a train station nearby my house. So, well, it's not really near my house. It's like 30-ish minutes from my house, but still. So I hear the train that goes off at night while I'm sleeping. I just go, I'm like, sleep time, sleeping, yay. And I just hear, I'm like, oh my gosh. I just heard it now, so I was like, oh, the train's here. Yeah. Or he'll throw a shoe at me. True. But what if you, like, instead of sleepwalking, you sleep through a shoe at my face? Wee. Down, 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 bow, bow, bow. Yeah, that would be. I'd be like, what the fuck? And you'll like wake up and you're like, huh? I'm like, you throw a shoe at my face. I'm like, no, I didn't. Like, yes, you clearly did. My freaking cheeks, like, all red. Oh, I did. Okay. You want me to turn on the weather? Hey, gal, have you found your sword yet, actually? I know I'm just doing this to be annoying, and that's the funny part. I'm like, why you throw shit at my face? What do you mean? Bye. Ah. Ah. I have a freaking poem stuck in my head, which is weird. I have a poem stuck in my head, it's odd. I've never had this happen before. It's like one line. As he flew, threw his head back into the wind, teeth bare to the world, stood in beauty, and setting the world on fire, and watching from the center of the flames. Anyway, um, yeah. Well, my computer is having spell save powers mainly when you're moving fast. Oh, okay. Move faster. Get. Yep, that's the entire point. I knew it would. Oh, it even liked for me. What do you want from me? I can, I can do it. I can make your computer suffer. I have the power to do that. Friggin' like, friggin' like, I don't know, like, I'm the controller of your glitch of the computer. Oh, I'm doing. I'm able to glitch out your computer. It's the power I have vested in me. I don't know what I'm talking about. Ignore me. I have no idea what's happening with my brain today. I have energy. That's weird. It's odd. I think my body's just saving up energy for tomorrow. Speaking of tomorrow, I don't know if I'll be stream tomorrow. Probably not. Because, those who. Yeah, right. Oh, the sky is black. The sky is black and there is a purple glow. Run. Why am I like this? Why am I like this? Why am I like this? Why am I? Go, go, go. Up. Yeah. Oh. I just bashed my head into a wall. It's fine. I need to start this out. I'm gonna scream if I don't. Okay. That goes there, that goes there. Don't actually need that anymore. Okay, so it's gonna go that. Goes out the computer, goes out the computer. Go, 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 go. Oh my god, oops. You wouldn't kill me, you can't kill me. I'll come back. There'll be paperwork. I watched Good Omens later. Earlier today. Oh, come on! Boo! Let me glitch out the entire thing. Get. Oh my gosh, my bitrate. Oh. No, tell him, like. I looked over at my bitrate and it's just. Oh shit. I should stop doing that. My bitrate's gonna die. I said what I said. I'd rather be famous instead. All that gets my. Why do I have my. Can I? She devil. bad little bitch, you will fall to the tunnel. Yeah, I'm just shooting things. I'm just gonna leave it there. Wait, so Gal, do you want your character to have glasses or no? Do you think we, that was not just you, that was me. Do you think, no, okay. Just checking. Anyway, have you found your sword yet? have you found your sword yet, Gal? I'll be back. Hey! But only for disguises. Okay. Hey! Ruth is back. Hello. Ah! Oh, I'm back. Yeah. I don't know, you disappeared. I'm back. We playing block game currently. Yeah. Why wouldn't you want to make like an entrance whenever you enter a room or into a conversation? Why not? How else do you enter a conversation or into a room? I love how like the first 10 minutes of the new day and Duolingo's already like, why don't you do practice 3 minutes of Portuguese currently right now? And I'm like, shut. Brr. Gal, listen to me. You are wrong. We have checked Google. Google is superior. Debatable. But, Gal, don't change subjects. Gal, it's B-I-N, is German. I-K, Ben, is Dutch. Okay, I'm just making sure you know. Okay. D. Okay. Welcome back, Ruther. We're playing block game now. And in block game, I am currently working on 2 big builds. Both are in my creative world, and in my creative world, I like making storylines. Gal is part of that storyline. This is Gal's build, technically. Oh, I clicked button. Wrong button. Um, and I'm making this thing. can't tell, this thing I've been working on for a while. I'll show you this in a bit. There's also this place over here and this place over here I've been building. There's a town. Where is it? It's down here. I've been building. But yeah, we've gone off and over here into this area. So I'll like build this thing. I should have made it bigger. No, I don't got any snacks. Go get your own snacks. Stop trying to steal from me. And then this is probably my biggest build yet. Go get snacks. Okay. Well, yeah, that's what we're doing. So yeah, I can also explain the lore. Yeah. So like this is like the place that we're in currently. Like it goes like this. Is the Minecraft Empire. This is the Minecraft Empire's capital. And then this is a small build that Gal asked. Yeah, basically I got really bored of this. So I'm like, you can that's just burning down. I'm just burning that down. Is that still burning? We're gonna have to check that out. Basically this is Gal's canonical this world and just went poof. Yeah, I'll have snacks. Um um like basically Gal's character has a sword and is a very high being that lives in the galaxy, in the stars, in the sky, and has a sword and just went boom into the ground. So that's what we're building. Guess I'll have snacks. I will bring snacks. I will bring the snacks. What snacks do you want? Search up your American snacks you want. Have you tried Lay's before? Not Lay's. Potato like the we have a certain type of potato chips. I'm bringing Lay's. I'm bringing the small ones. You know, like okay, I'm gonna explain it. So then, like, I'm probably saying it wrong. The the yellow bag with the potato chip symbol on it. Right, so just up. You've never had this. You've you've never had this. You've never had this. You've never had this. We're searching on American food now. Okay. Sorry. American food brands. Have you not had what? Cheese balls. Do you not have? Come on. No, not this. I don't care about this. Brr. Okay, whatever. Okay, have you had Cheetos? Cheerios. Oh, Rice Krispies. Milky Ways, Reese's. Ooh, Reese's are so good. Tostaditos. Oh, I can never pronounce the name actually. I just call them toasty tots. Those are really good. Goldfish, best. Popcorn. Little mustard, Jif. Lifesaver, mac and cheese. Oreos. Oreos best. Cheerios. Ooh, those chocolates are so good. Bananas. Ooh, the crazies. Twix. Chips Ahoy. Oh, those things. Tomato soup. Lace. You seriously never had these. I need to bring like a bunch of those in. You're gonna probably like them. Cheetos. Snickers. Oh, these are so good. Pringles. Ruffles. Have you not had Ruffles? Have you had Ruffles? Dove! This is what I was talking about. Dove. Dove, I believe, is also might be soap brand. Hmm. All these things. Oh yeah. Oh, it's Macy's. Dove. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. Dove. Dove chocolate. Tomato ketchup. Doritos. Kisses. Oh, chocolate kisses. Now, so gal, this is what chocolate kisses look like. They have this shape to them. I mean, you can eat them. They're so good. Well, you can, of course, you can eat them. They're chocolate. Beans. I went crazy in the beans section once. Because I had to sort beans once for a food pantry. I went crazy. Oreos. Ooh, this looks so good. Kit Kats. Oh, Kit Kats are amazing. Ritz, Reese's, Lay's, Hershey's, M&M's. Mwah. All amazing food. I will be bringing some of it, probably if I ever go up there. Sorry about that. One sec. One sec. One sec. One sec. Maybe I'll left again. Reese's. Oh my gosh. You have never had goldfish. I had goldfish before the stream. Chips. It's Chips Ahoy. It's not Cheetos Ahoy. Chips. I'm gonna need to bring an entire suitcase just full of sweets. Snack suitcase, yeah. You're just gonna take the snack suitcase. Okay. Hey, Gal, have you found your sword yet, though? Have you? Have you found your sword yet? Or I could just get a hotel, honestly. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, it's fine. Ooh. Ah. I don't have a guest room in my house because well, technically we could, but it's just the office, which is where I am currently. Where was it? I legitimately have no idea. I have no idea where it was. I had zero clue where it was. Ooh, night snacks. Yeah, those are the best. I've had like I've never really like snacked during like midnight or anything like that due to the fact I live in a two-story house and unfortunately my house is very creaky and my parents' room are right at the edge of the stairs. So I will just be screwed by trying to sneak down. Food's not really up well upstairs. Bruh. Ah, yeah. Ah, nice. Cool. E. Yeah. Yeah. This would be fun. But that would be fun. Yeah. Oh, what time is it? Ah, it's late. It's 12:30 a.m. not p.m. No. Yeah. I did not have my other hand ready. Woo. Gal, I'm gonna come meet you. Gal, I'm coming. Hold up. We need like some cool music. No. We need No, we need Yes. I'm coming. We can zip in this. You understand chat is the stars, right? Chatter stars. Chatters, you are all stars. In lore context and in IRL context. I am. Here. Let's just start the job. Look at that middle number. That's climbing in blocks. We'll stop at 2,000 blocks. Hold up, wait, what is that one poem? No, there's this poem that keeps playing in my head. Gosh, can I play a poem? It's stuck in my head. I wanna play it. Okay. I wanna play this one poem that's really cool. That I like. It's really cool. Uh, Icarus laughed as he fell, flew his head back and yelled into the wings, surrounded by teaspoons in the world. No, I didn't know that. I'd be soaring. This is the poem. That's a tragedy. No, no long. Meanwhile, I've been to tell you. The world who gave me wings, they did not tell you that I knew I would burn in flames. I knew you see, I knew the enemy I would face. I fell, I knew I did it for the sun as her burning wax slithered down my spine as the doctor's kissed and agony pecked on my skin and muscle. I laughed. I saw beauty, others saw pain. Did you see? It was addicting, and Dionysus would marvel at my insanity. There's no beauty without pain, and as I wait for a judgment in the land of Hades, I ask myself, is it worth the fall for the sun? And I answer yes. It was. Oh gosh, music. No! Icarus. You must see my death as a tragedy. I did not know that. Things they did not tell you, and I knew burning flames. I knew, you see, I knew the agony I would face as I fell. I knew I did it for the sun as hot burning wax slithered down my spine and circular kisses of agony peckered my skin and muscle. I laughed. I laughed as where I saw beauty, I saw pain. Oh, did you see? It was addictive, and even Dionysus would marvel at my insanity. There's no beauty without pain, and as I wait for judgment in the land of Hades, I ask myself, is it worth the fall for the sun? And I answer yes, it was. Ooh. Ah, music. Shot. How the hell did we get over here? I sent your last message, gal. I did not know that info. That's funny. Oh, well, okay. She got like a headache. My eyes went blurry for a second. Okay, I think probably. Probably have just been looking at the screen too long. That's all. It should be fine. Anyway, yeah, I did not know that. I don't have iPhones. I have Android. My iPad is the only iPhone thing I think I have. Oh, I would break immediately. I would just start laughing. I'm gonna see if Android has that too. Ooh. Okay. Um. Okay. I'm gonna finish this up, this part, and then the next line, and then I think I'm gonna end stream. Basically, been almost streaming for 2 hours, and I want to upload a VOD to my VOD channel. Key. Okay. Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. Like I was saying before, I'm probably not gonna stream tomorrow because of Thanksgiving, and I think my body's just saving up all energy for tomorrow. Uh, because I'm gonna have to. Because I'm gonna have to talk a lot tomorrow, and I'm gonna need a lot of social battery for that. And I think it might just hit the freaking floor when I like after everyone leaves. So yeah, I'm probably not gonna stream tomorrow. If I do, yay. If I don't, oh. Yeah. And then I was gonna finish up this part, and then I was going to log off because I wanted to upload a few VODs to my VODs YouTube channel. This stream tomorrow, okay, yeah. No stream, unfortunately. I will be streaming, I think twice the next day. Oh, so yeah, okay. Ooh, okay. I think I'm gonna end it here. So yeah, we're almost done with it. Which is not even close to being done, but yeah. Well, the song's called Forget the Past. Kinda like it. Arriving at nowhere. Let's find it. And here it is. Okay, chat. We're gonna go now. So yeah, thank you so much for popping in. Yeah, thank you so much for popping in. For those who just popped in for like a quick second and then left. For those who stayed the entire stream. Yeah, thank you so much for coming by and just saying hi. That was cool. I really liked it. It was a cool stream. Yeah. You too, love you too. I am gonna turn off my mic now, and I'm gonna let you guys listen to the music. I'll turn up the music a little bit, and yeah, I will see you guys next time. Bye! No stream tomorrow. We'll be streaming Friday. So yeah. Okay. Bye, chat. Bye!